Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Eye on the Ball. I'm Steve Rivera, along with Jay Gonzalez, and you're listening to 1030 The Voice. I think today is going to be a very special show. Let's not screw it up, Jay.
Let's not mess this up. Let's not.
Who do you got? Who do you have?
We've got Terry Francona coming in. He's a good friend of Eddie Leone. We had Eddie on last week, and Eddie helped us get Terry to join us and talk a little bit about what's going on in Major League Baseball. And also, we hope to go into some story time on, from his days at Arizona. He left here as an All-American in 1980, and then won College World Series, and has had a long playing and managerial career. So we just want to check in with him, see how things are going. He spends a lot of time in Tucson, and just see what he's been up to.
Yeah, right. He has a heart near and dear to Tucson and U of A because he's constantly at games.
Right, and and he's one of those guys. He's one of those guys for the baseball program that's kind of like the Steve Kerr and Sean Elliott guys. Teddy Bruschi, Chuck Cecil for football. He's one of those guys that people remember him when they think about Arizona baseball and its history. Terry's one of the guys that they remember, not just because of the great career he had here, but also because of the great career he's had in Major League Baseball. Right.
In fact, I would venture to guess. We talked about this a couple days ago, that he'd be on the Mount Rushmore of the baseball team?
He'd definitely be on my Mount Rushmore of Arizona baseball.
Give me three more real quick.
Certainly. That's
kind of tough, isn't it?
It is, because you think, they've had four national championship teams. I think of some of the local guys like Gil Heredia, who was on the 86 team. And, you had Scott Erickson, who had an incredible, single season.
Chip Hale?
Chip Hale. I think you might have to put Chip Hale out there.
Well, 2012
the 2012 team, I think of Alex Mejia when I think of that team.
Heiser, the pitcher.
Kurt Heyer. I think there's a lot of guys, but when you think of one guy on one team, you think of Francona on the 1980 team.
Yeah, I agree with you. In fact, we talked about it. I think that he is the best player to ever play here. I talked to Hundley, Ricky Hundley, so I think he's the guy. That's debatable, but I think he's the guy. We just got to get Sean Elliott.
Right. And I'll date myself a little bit. I'm going to throw out a name, Dave Stegman, on the 1975 and 76 teams. They won a championship in 76 that we talked about, and in the 75 team that only lost 6 games, and unfortunately 2 of those were in a regional, and they didn't even get to the College World Series. But Dave Stegman was a guy who could just rake, and he had a career with the Detroit Tigers. So I think he's a guy that I'd put up there. He was one of the most amazing hitters that Arizona's ever had.
Really. So that's, man, you are taking
so there you go.
12? How old were you? About 14?
No, I was in high school by that time. I was in high school by that time.
We've already made enough old guy jokes.
Well,
I'm right behind you, so I can't say much.
And again, I'm looking at, when you look people up and you find out a little bit more about them, and Terry and I were going to the U of A at the same time. We were basically in the same class. His was a little different. I'm guessing he had better luck with the chicks than I did, he left school, I think, a year early. He left after the junior year. He got drafted in the first round, but we would have been in the same graduating class, in 1981. So, we've got that going for us. I was looking it up. He's about four years older than me. Once again, another one of those guys like Dave Rubio, who just looks way better than I do, and so I got to give him that. A little
smoother.
Probably. I'm guessing if Terry's around, he maybe gets in some workouts in the clubhouse and those kinds of things. So takes a little better care of himself than maybe I do.
So we'll talk to him about maybe the possibility of when he thinks baseball is going to come out. Finally.
Right. I'm interested to see what his perspective is, and what he's hearing and what he thinks is might happen. Maybe get his gut feeling for what does he think is going to happen. I'd like to think he's kind of on the front lines and getting some information that's not going to everybody, and we'll see how much he'll tell us about where things stand.
He's probably just he's in the know, obviously, with his conversations with his owners and his managers and all these other things. But I'm sure he doesn't know as much. You know what I'm saying? Because everyone's still up in the air.
Again, it is so up in the air. You even talk like we talked to some of the Pac-12 coaches in the last week, and it's up in the air. They're guessing.
The one thing that we do know is They want to come back.
Everybody wants to play.
Well, except for maybe a guy named Snell,
but
because he's not going to get his full payment.
exactly. But it seems that everybody wants to play.
Yeah,
somehow.
Sure.
And again, if it's done safely and responsibly. So it'll be, like I said, it'll be interesting to see what's on his mind and where things might be right now.
Right. I'm looking forward to it. I've never had a conversation, maybe a slight conversation with him 3 or 4 years ago at the basketball games. So he's a great guy. He's done some ESPN work, a lot of media stuff. So he has that background too.
Sure. And you know what? He just seems like an all-around good guy. And I think I maybe talked to him at an event or something like that, but not enough where I think he's going to remember me. And I see him all the time.
Right.
Sitting across from me at McHale Center. Right. I'm at the scores table. He's on the other side in the front row. So I see him there, and clearly a huge fan of Arizona basketball because those seats aren't cheap. So it'd be interesting to see what.
I think right near the president.
No, he's on the opposite side of the table. So
President Robbins.
President Robbins is to my right. Terry's to my left.
Oh,
so
I thought he was
they're
to
separated
the right.
by the broadcast table.
Oh, okay. I've
them.
seen him on the Robbins area.
What President Robbins probably gets to sit wherever he wants, right?
Or Terry too.
But I do know that when it's packed, President Robbins is sitting across from the visitor bench,
right,
and Terry's sitting across from the home bench.
I've seen them both on the same side, so we're both on that same side. Yeah. So cool. Our first argument, Jay.
It was, Look, you know what? I do get to look around once in a while, and I kind of pick out where people are. I know where some friends sit, and I take a look and see where they are. So,
right.
Got to keep yourself entertained pregame.
Right. No. Yeah, because you're too busy during the game counting assists.
Right, counting everything. Gosh.
Yeah. Right.
Everything.
Well, you didn't miss it this year because you went through the year.
Right.
So next year we'll see what happens. I know that we're going to need to take a break here, but I'm looking forward to it. And then we're going to have him for about a half hour.
Yeah, we're going to get him for 2 segments. So we'll talk a little bit about Major League Baseball and what's going on there. Then we'll let him. We'll try and get into some stories about Arizona baseball. I'd like to know. Obviously, he spends a lot of time here, so he obviously fell in love with the place, and likes being here. And he's put some money into the U of A, both in, as we said, in those tickets that he gets at McHale, but he also put $1 million into the hitting center at High Corbett, which, as a matter of fact, I got to hit in that last year.
Oh, you did?
It was fun, and it's quite a facility.
Live pitching or pitch machine?
Well, I had somebody throwing a batting practice pitches. They weren't throwing them hard at me. Yeah. And then I took a couple off the machine, and I had to have them slow it down. Right. Put a little arc on those things. Though. But it was fun. It's fun to get in there and take a couple of whacks.
I like to take some ground balls out there. I
don't get in front of ground balls anymore.
I like to play. I can't. I'm not a power hitter. I'm not a hitter. I take some ground balls. No bad hops, please.
That's why I'm. You know what? I'm not going to be fast enough to get my glove up. If I catch them, it's going to hit me wherever it's going to hit me. So I just assume not.
Right. Our reactions are not the same.
They are not
as they used to be. I think we're going to take a break here right now and come back and talk to Terry Francona.
All right.
Hey, welcome back to Eye on the Ball here on 1030 The Voice. I'm Steve Rivera alongside Jay Gonzalez. And now on the phone we have Terry Francona. Terry, how are you?
Good, guys. How you doing?
It's funny that we find you in Louisville, Kentucky, where you're probably checking out some baseball bats to take with you. I mean, the best hitter has some of the best bats from Louisville.
No, I'm on my way to Cleveland. I left Tucson Wednesday night. And I'm about another 8 hours from Cleveland. My rear end's numb. I'm not stopping for anything.
Terry, thanks for joining us. So this is Jay Gonzalez. So my question to you is: did you leave? Are you headed back to Cleveland because you've got stuff to do now, and we might be seeing a baseball season, or did it just get too darn hot and you said I got to get out of here?
No, man. I love Tucson. I will never complain about it being too hot because I hate being cold. No, I actually I kind of hated to leave. You know, there's a possibility of us getting started up, and I just want to make sure that we give our organization every possible chance to be prepared. And I thought I could do that better from Cleveland. There's so many hurdles to go over. I don't know if it's going to work or not. But I just, like I said, I want to make sure that we're ready to play if there's a chance to.
So when you get there, what's on the agenda for you? What are you going to be doing to start getting ready for this?
Well, actually, the very first thing I found out is getting a COVID test. I called one of the trainers today, and I was like, "Hey, I'll be at the ballpark Saturday morning or Sunday morning." And he's like, no, not until you get a test. So then I guess I get a test, and then I guess I got to quarantine for a couple days, and then I can start going into the ballpark.
The funny thing is Jay just perked up a bit because you gave him a chance. It's a nice little tease that you're on your way back to Cleveland to possibly maybe get a hint of a chance of baseball.
Oh, the MLB is doing such a good job of having plans, having contingency plans, having plans on top of the plans. And again, it's they've been really open and honest about it's gonna have to be safe for the players and their families, and we can't be taken away from the public. And if they can make it work, I actually think it'd be great for everybody. I don't know about you guys, but I've run out of TV shows.
Oh God!
So I think people would welcome something to watch.
Terry, I was watching Korean baseball. Okay, I was up at 2:00 in the morning watching Korean baseball. So, it's I mean we can't wait. So from the time that from the time that things got shut down, you were in and you were here in Tucson. What were you doing? What were you doing with your time here? Waiting for word that something might happen.
Yeah, I mean I've never been home. This time of the year. Regardless of where I lived. I've been in baseball my whole life. But I'd meet friends of yours, too. I meet Eddie Leon and Mike Paul every morning. We'd go for a walk, which I have never done in my life. I'd make sure I'd come home and I'd swim in the afternoon. And then other than that, our organization had a lot of Zoom calls. I never thought in my life I would be able to navigate through a Zoom call, but I can now say that. And then, to be honest with you, I was so bored, I couldn't. I'd wait for dinner. I'd be like, okay, now I can eat dinner, and I'd watch something on TV. Like I said, I was kind of running out of stuff.
You've been really busy on the media circuit too. Hannah Storm earlier this week. I saw you on another show. You've been kind of like the spokesman for a lot of reasons.
Well, with the Michael Jordan Last Dance thing, some of that got revived. So I probably. I did a lot of interviews actually, just because there's so much interest in everything about Michael, and I actually really do enjoy talking about him because my experience with him was so good that I actually do like talking about him.
Well, tell us a little bit about that because that's been a really interesting thing for us to watch. I mean, Michael Jordan in the '90s was something that we were, if you were any kind of a sports fan, even if you weren't an NBA fan, you were watching that and you knew that history was being made. So, what's your take on all this that's happened, that they're talking about in the series. But then, you were in it. You had an experience with him. I mean, tell us a little bit about how that's kind of stayed at the forefront for you.
One, it really surprised me that he allowed that much access to what they were doing, and I guess it's taken 20 years for them to unlock the vault. But I think it's really well done. As far as baseball goes, you got to remember, I was 34 years old, and my second year as a Double-A manager, man, I was just trying to survive. And when we found out he was going to come to Birmingham, we sat down, and I said, hey, it's really important that you understand that we have 23 other guys in this room, and they've probably played on an average of 4 years just to get to this level, and here's the kind of money they're making. I said, so respect to the game is really important. And I got to be really honest, that blew me away how much he respected not only the game of baseball, but the people in the game. And he became, on the very first day he was there, a member of the Birmingham Barons. And he didn't have to do that. And that really impressed me.
You said that if he stuck with it and took the at bats and played some defense a long time, that he would have eventually made it to the major leagues. That goes to show how talented he is as an athlete.
It's not just that, because I do think he had the tools if he was willing to play. But I also found out that if you told him no, he would find a way to make the answer be yes. And I've heard that on this Last Dance several times, and I lived through it myself, and I believe that.
Did you see him as much as was he as much of a competitor in baseball as you've gotten the sense that he was in basketball? I mean, was it that important to him, and did he compete that hard? Not to the point of punching Steve Kerr in the eye, of course, but how important was baseball to him at that time, and was he that competitive, and did he kind of reflect that on the other guys?
I've seen him break ping pong paddles, tennis rackets. He doesn't want to just beat you. He wants to beat you into oblivion. And it doesn't matter what he's doing. The one thing I would say is, and I don't know if this has come across or not in the shows, he may be a little bit of I don't want to say tyrant, but he pushes everybody. But it's to win. It's not for personal gain. It's for team game. And I saw that part of him too. He doesn't like to lose at anything when you're talking about a team.
You must have seen a lot of athletes like that at this level, the baseball level specifically, where you have those winners who hate to lose and push others too. Yes?
Oh, yeah. I played with Pete Rose and actually for Pete. Dustin Pedroia comes to mind. There's just some guys that have the ability to raise the level of everybody around them, and also to be their best when the moment is the biggest.
Those are the guys that you have to have. Every team has to have those to be successful, right?
Oh yeah, shoot, we have a kid, Francisco Lindor. You know what? We just wind him up and turn him loose and try to stay out of the way, because he's that special of a player, and he's got all the tools. He's smart. Like I said, the best thing we can do is get out of his way.
Yeah.
You talked about Pete Rose. I got a text about 5 minutes ago to ask you about that. You played with Pete and you played for Pete. How was that?
I'm not sure, but I think I'm the only guy that can lay claim to that.
Right.
I can't say for sure, but I have never come up with another name. I'll tell you, we were in 1984. He came to Montreal, and every young player on the team, we thought Pete walked on water. He was the ultimate teammate. So then when I had a chance to play for him 3 years later, I loved it. I played so poorly that I felt terrible, but I know Pete's done some things, and it's all well documented. But if you played with Pete, I bet you wouldn't hear too many teammates say something negative about him.
Well, yeah, certain. He was one of those guys that was, a competitor, at everything. And you know, the way he threw himself around the field. I was a Dodger fan, so I really couldn't stand the guy. But you know, but again, I respected the kind of a ball player he was, and you know, I couldn't stand the Reds when he was with the Reds because they were in the same division at the time. You know, and then when he went, you know, when he and Joe Morgan went to the Phillies and all that, and and they kept winning championships and that. So it was, you know, I mean, certainly, again, he was one of those guys.
And Pete always said, you know, he said, he goes, I've never been booed at my home ballpark. And he goes, it's, you know, you want to be booed in the visitor's ballpark because that means people fear you.
Yeah, no question. We're going to take a quick break here. Can we get you on the other side?
Guys, I got nowhere to go.
Go.
I'll be here.
Good. Well, would love to have talk a little bit more. We want to hear some Arizona baseball stories.
Yes, good old day stuff.
You got it.
Let's take
You
a
got
quick
it.
break here on 1030 The Voice. Hey, welcome back to Eye on the Ball here on 1030 The Voice. I'm Steve Rivera alongside Jay Gonzalez. And on the phone we have former U of A baseball great Terry Francona, Cleveland Indians manager. Terry, so you're on the road. You're going to be there soon. And we look forward to some baseball.
Well, that's the hope. And again, there's a lot of hurdles, a lot of hoops to jump through, but they're trying, and I give them a lot of credit. They're doing it in a really respectful way, and I hope it works. And that's, if not, we'll sack up the bats and try again next year, I guess.
So, Terry, have you done the math and realized that you're headed into your 20th year as a manager?
Well, I don't do math very often because it makes my head hurt, but I did know it was my 20th year, yeah.
That's, there was a point, there had to be a point in your career, whether it was, when you were playing in the major leagues or even maybe when you were back in college, that you had decided baseball was going to be your life, forever and ever. I mean, was there a point like that? And do you recall when that might have been?
Well, I mean, when I was a little kid, my dad played 15 years, and I knew that's all I was ever going to do was play baseball. I was just certain of that. But when I got to the major leagues, I was probably like everybody else. I thought I'd hit 350, win a batting title, make a ton of money, and retire on my own terms. And, my rookie year, I blew my knee out, and then 2 years later, I blew the other one out. And so basically for the last 8 years, I was just hanging on. And I never thought about coaching or managing, but what I realized was because I sat the bench so much, I listened and I paid attention and I watched. And then when I got a chance to go manage the minor leagues, it just fit like it was a natural, and I loved it. Like the day I got there, I was like, man, this is what I can do this.
One of the big things that impresses me, obviously the 2 World Series, but since leaving Philly, you have not had a losing season since then. That doesn't happen by accident, especially in baseball.
Well, I've been pretty lucky now. I've been around some really good players, and I know that. The one thing I will brag about, and I mean this, I think I've set the record for being around good people, and I really believe that. I mean, I've been so fortunate. And I'm just kind of a baseball lifer, and I've been given some pretty good circumstances. I mean, I've gotten to work, next to one of my best friends, Brad Mills, who's a former U of A third baseman. We've been together since 1977. That's incredible. So I get to stand next to him every game. I can't tell you how fulfilling that is.
Well, let me ask you about, thinking back to your days at Arizona, what were some of the things that you experienced there? You won a championship, you won all these awards, you were an All-American, Golden Spikes Award. But, what did you experience at Arizona that you think helped set you up for what you've done since then, both as a player and a manager?
Oh, my goodness. You don't have enough time for me to say. I mean, I was drafted by the Cubs in the second round out of high school, and I honestly think if I'd have signed, I'd have probably been one of those guys that fell through the cracks. I was typical 18-year-old. I wanted to do everything, see everything, and my parents knew that Jerry Kindle would keep a tight thumb on me and teach me how to play baseball the right way because they knew I wanted to be a baseball player. And I got 3 years at Arizona where I got to mature. I got to learn not only baseball, but life from 3 of the best coaches you could ever have. And I mean, I know how lucky I was. Jerry Kindle, Jim Wing, Jerry Stitt, you couldn't play for better guys.
How comfortable are you with this title? Probably being the best baseball player here Arizona has ever had?
Oh boy, I've never given that much thought. I'm pretty good about staying in the moment. I don't know. I really never. I remember when I came here in '77, Dave Stegman had just left, and I remember when I met him, I was so in awe of him. And I remember thinking, "Wow, man, maybe someday I can be like that good." I just think you do the best you can. You stay in the moment. You don't look too far back. You don't look too far forward. And normally you just kind of stay, like I said, stay in the moment, take care of business. you usually end up right where you're supposed to be.
Terry, we were in the same year in school. I went to the U of A at the same time as you did. I was looking up your state. You're like 4 months older than me, and again, as I told Dave Rubio last week, you're keeping way better than I am. But I
don't know about that.
But we were going there at the same time, and I remember those teams. I remember Dave Stegman. I was finishing up high school when he was tearing it up here. But then I was going to Arizona games as a student when you were playing, and that was sort of the. That was sort of the heyday of Arizona baseball. They won a championship in '76, won another one in '80 when you were there. They were good every year. They won another one in '86. So that was a period of time that that it was a big deal here, and it continues to be a big deal. But you obviously enjoyed the time because you keep coming back. There's something about Tucson that has kept you coming back. What are some of those things aside from the fact that you had a great time playing baseball?
It's funny because when I landed in Tucson in August of 1977, I remember looking out the plane window and I'm like, what did I get myself into? Everything was brown and I was like, I don't know, man. And I was a typical homesick kid for a while. I mean, I admit that. I was really fortunate. I grew up in a great hometown, small town. I had wonderful parents, and I missed everybody. But as soon as I got used to being away, I loved everything about the U of A, Tucson, and, I lived there until 1996 when I took the Phillies job, and we moved the family back to the East Coast. And then when the Red Sox thing kind of fell apart about 10 years ago, I moved back to Tucson. It's the best thing I ever did. I love it there.
You still have a love affair with the baseball team. Helped them with their batting stuff, obviously. What's your love with them or for them?
Well, I felt like I always wanted to try to do something for the U of A because I felt like I would have never gotten to the big leagues without it. But I was never in a position to do it before. I mean, every time I thought I was going to make money, I'd either get hurt or I'd play bad or I'd get released. So I didn't really have that much money. Manager to actually get paid pretty well, and I wanted to give back to the U of A because I don't think any of this would have happened without it.
Well, I've had a chance to hit in that facility, and that's not even close the nicest place I've ever hit. I got to hit in one of the Diamondbacks batting cages over at Keno Ballpark, but it's that is A1 facility.
You know what? I was blown away by the job they did. I mean, if that had been there when I was in college, I would have lived in that thing.
Yeah, and it seems that there's some guys who do that because the couple of times that I went there, we did a thing with the baseball team with the Sugar Skulls, who I was the president of. But we did some stuff with them, and some of our players got to go hit in there, and there were guys. I saw the same guys there every time I went there.
Well, they're probably the better hitters too. The guys that like to hit and hit a lot usually are the better ones.
Steve Kerr was on Zoom last night with Sean Miller and Matt Muehlbach. I'm curious, you see a lot of talked about former players in the NBA or players in the NBA that he gets to see and talk to. You must see a lot of UA players going through the league. And is there a nice relationship with you ex-guys?
And I'm getting older now, and, because I'm 61, so it's been a long time. But when somebody I know, they're on the other team and they'll come up to bat, I will definitely, tip my hat to them or I'll wave at them. I hope we get them out, but I definitely take an interest in what they're doing. And it's not just baseball. I mean, when Richard Jefferson was playing for the Cavaliers, I went and saw him. I've seen Steve Kerr more than once. I see Matt Muehlbach at the U of A games when he's announcing. I mean, I'm a U of A fan, and I always will be.
Well, I see you sitting in the front row at McHale for a lot of those games. Are you a huge college basketball fan, or is it I'm in Tucson and that's just something I like to do?
No, I am a huge college basketball fan, but when Lute Olson came, I remember thinking, man, I ought to try to get tickets, and I wasn't in a real good place financially. but I got tickets way up high. I got 2 tickets, and me and my buddy, we would go all the time. Well, I upgraded to where I am now, and I'm telling you guys, I try to look at my schedule or look at their schedule and not leave town when they're playing. That's how much I enjoy the games.
Well, that's a heck of a vantage point. I mean, what do you? Yeah, a heck of an upgrade. Seriously, do you try and interact at all? I sit across from you. I'm at the stat table, so I see you over there, but I'm busy, so I'm not really paying attention. You're having conversations with players, with the refs, anything like that. I mean, what's it like sitting there? Because from where I sit, there's a barrier. So there's like there's stuff in front of me. There's nothing in front of you.
It's funny because people in Tucson, and this, people are friendly there. It's not a big city, type attitude. But I laugh because most of the referees come over and talk to me. And after, they'll make a bad call or something, and I'll walk over and I say, man, don't come over and stand next to me. I said, man, you got to go stand on the other side right now.
They need someone to cheer because they know they're going to cheer for you, so, they got to get close to you. Let me ask you, just philosophy. Has your philosophy as a coach changed much in the 20 years you've been a manager?
No, I really don't think so. I mean, I'd like to think that with experience, I've gotten better. I've been a hope, but if you don't, you're kind of missing the boat. But I've always felt like, even when I was in Birmingham making $28,000, I remember thinking, you know what? If I put the players and the organization first, my situation will always take care of itself. And I've always tried to live by that. And you know what? 25 years later, I'm still doing this. So I think I think that it works for me. And it doesn't mean that's for everybody, but that's just how I feel.
Do you take it upon yourself to kind of mentor maybe some of the younger coaches or even the younger players and say, look, you got a future doing this or something like that? Do you try and do that? Does it just kind of come natural?
I don't think you can just try. Although I will say this, as an organization, since we've had some downtime, twice a week at night we meet with the minor league managers, minor league coaches, and we talk baseball. And it's really fun. And one of the things I try to tell them, though, is, hey, you don't try to be me. If you want to learn a thing or two from me, great. But you got to be true to yourself. I played for 16 managers, and I think I took something from every one of them. But in the end, you got to be true to yourself. Players might not be Ivy League educated, but they'll see right through a phony right now.
Right, I agree with you. Terry, we got a quick call from Chuck. He wants to ask you a quick question.
Sure.
Go ahead, Chuck.
Hello, Terry. I just wondering, who was the toughest right-hander you ever faced and left-hander you ever faced?
Good question. Thanks, Chuck.
The left, again, some of the left-handers I didn't play against that were, but Jerry Royce and John Candelaria were the 2 toughest lefties. They just didn't get you out; they embarrassed you. Right-handers, what's funny is, in my career, the most at bats I have it was against Nolan Ryan. I think I had 41 at bats against him, and it was because a lot of the right-handers would get sick that day. It just seemed to happen. So I thought that was kind of a funny stat.
That's a good one. I've been dying to ask you this one. Okay, we look back through your stats. You had you pitched an inning.
Oh yeah.
In 1989 for Milwaukee. It looks like it was a 1-2-3 inning with a strikeout. Walk us through that one.
We were getting beat up in Oakland, and when you're the guy they put into pitch, that means you're not the big prospect anymore. But they knew I could do it. And I was throwing knuckleballs, and I actually ended up striking out Stan Javier, who I knew, and it was the only strikeout we had as a staff that night. And so, you know what, though? It ends up being good because guys loosen up. We're getting our brains beat out, and guys are getting a chuckle about it. And we actually went on to play pretty good after that.
Yeah. Did you ever go back to some of the other pitchers and say, hey, guys,
That's just not easy.
I did it. You got to do better, right?
I know that position players don't like hitting off position players, and you have a huge advantage. The only thing they can do is make an out. They're supposed to get a hit. So it's different. It's like, you know, you go out and play one round of golf and you shoot a 75 and you think you can play on the tour. You know, we got to slow down a little bit.
Let me ask you, Terry. We got a couple minutes left here for this segment. What would the 61-year-old Terry Francona tell the 18-year-old Terry Francona now with all this advice?
You know, I would. Baseball was so easy for me when I was young. I mean, I just thought it was playing the game. I love playing the game. Coach Kendall couldn't keep me out there too long. I'd never complain, but I didn't lift weights with my heart in it. And I think that's probably why I got injured early in my career. I think my heart was in the right place, but my body wasn't. And I don't think I could, you know, I couldn't get through the rigors of a season. And I think it really cost me. I learned to work into my career, but it was already too late for me to be an everyday player.
Terry, we really appreciate you joining us. This was a lot of fun. Be safe on the road.
Thanks, Terry. We
Guys, I
we do
enjoyed it.
appreciate
Take
it.
care.
I'm going to come
got it,
across
guys.
to you, and I'm going to come across to the next time I see you at McHale, and we'll have a little chat.
I'll be there the first home game.
All right. Thanks so much. Drive safely,
All
and
right, guys.
we hope we see you on the
Got
field
it.
sometime soon.
Yes.
Me too. Take care, guys.
Thank you. That was Terry Francona. Great interview. Thank you, Jay. And thank you, Terry. Let's take a quick break here on 1030 The Voice. Hey, welcome back to Eye on the Ball here on 1030 The Voice. I'm Steve Rivera alongside Jay Gonzalez. Not a bad day today.
That was fun. That was really fun, and Terry's he's a big, he's a national figure.
Right,
a couple of World Series championships with the Red Sox and, got to another World Series with the Indians. And, for him to take the time to take some time with us and,
Right.
Talk to the people that he spends time with here. He loves it in Tucson, and I thought that was just great that he would give us the time and really, we had a great conversation. I really enjoyed that.
You know that he was in Louisville getting some bats.
He had, you know what?
The guy was a hitter.
I bet, and you know what? I'm guessing he could still bring it a
Oh,
little
heck
bit.
yes. Yeah.
If people who can hit, they can just hit.
Right. Then you get a pitch
and
runner.
He could hit.
Get him in the score, no problem.
Right.
So in your research of him, because you knew of him already, what did you find the most surprising?
Well,
Was it the pitching thing?
Well, I thought the pitching thing was really funny, but people have that. I was stunned that he's been managing for 20 years.
Yeah.
And there's actually a couple of years in there that he was out of managing. The 2001, 2, and 3 seasons, and when he left Philadelphia, and then he was out for a year after he was gone from Boston. So he's been a manager for going on 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I saw that and it made me feel really, really old. I mean, I think of Terry Francona. I think of the Terry Francona I saw playing baseball
Right.
at Arizona. He was a young-looking guy, and he was just so darn good.
Right.
And he was so good.
I thought, to me, the most impressive thing, he hasn't had a losing season in 20-some years.
That's amazing.
Because that
that's
doesn't
stunning.
happen.
That doesn't happen. And that shows that whatever you're doing it really well.
No question.
You're getting people to believe in you and to do it that long.
Right.
Do it that well.
You've had a number of managers. Obviously, when I played, I had a number of managers or coaches. You can tell he's not a tyrant. He lets them play.
Right. And it's funny because that, when you hear about what happened in Boston, that was kind of what they got tired of over there. I'm like, why are you tired of it when you're winning?
When you're winning, right.
What's the problem?
Yeah.
And you can tell he's a, without labeling Terry, maybe he's a bit of a player's coach because he just lets the players play.
Mm-hmm.
You deal with all the other stuff that you got to deal with as a manager, but he's clearly, whatever he's doing, it's successful for
Sure.
him. He's got all this time in as a manager and as a winning manager. And so, there were a lot of guys tried to win a championship in Boston and couldn't do it, and he did it twice.
And he did it the first year he was
did
there.
It the first year he was there. So
Yeah.
it's amazing. But again, a great guy to talk to, somebody who just just gives you the time of day. He's personable. He seems to enjoy talking about the things that he does. He wanted to talk about his experience with Michael Jordan because he enjoyed that period of time, and it was a really interesting part of his career.
Right. One of the things I heard, and I wanted to ask him because I don't know if it's true or not. I didn't bring it up in the films here over the last few weeks, that Jordan got him a nice souped up bus to get around in.
Exactly. And again, what an experience it would have been to have somebody like that.
Oh yeah.
Playing, and what I liked what he said about how, he sat Jordan down and said, "Look, these guys, they're not you.
Right.
But this is their livelihood. They're not making the money you're making. You got to give them the respect." And then that he did.
Isn't that the reason why he's a good manager?
Of course.
Right away, you sit down with your player.
Of course.
Explain the situation, and just don't let him show up.
Yeah, he said he was 34 years old, managing a minor league baseball team, making $28,000 a year,
right.
And all of a sudden, Michael Jordan falls in your lap.
And he's only 4 years younger, I think, than Terry.
So so you're sitting there, but you grabbed it,
Mm-hmm.
you dealt with it, and you said, "This is how we're going to do this." And the fact that Michael Jordan respected that, and
Right.
then that he respected the players.
Right.
But I thought that was really cool.
I think every player wants to play for a player's manager.
I think they do. But some of those managers get in trouble by not
being tough enough.
Right. Not holding players accountable and those kinds of things.
But-
and that's where they have issues.
Right, but they have that tough on the side. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? They
Of
have
course
that.
they do.
Dick Tomey was that
Dick
guy.
Tomey was that guy.
Yeah.
He was a player's coach, but he also held them accountable.
Right. We saw a lot of that firsthand.
We did.
Because we went to practices, got to see him get on guys. Not tough, but fair.
Sure.
Fair.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Great day today, Jay.
Fun day.
Monday. Tell me real quick.
Monday, we've got Greg Byrne coming in, former athletic director at Arizona, now at Alabama. We're going to try and get an SEC perspective on what's going on with college football and whether we're going to have football in the fall.
I wonder if he still wears those red pants. Maybe
I
a
don't
different
know.
shade of red
Different
pants.
shade of red,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Right.
Great day today, Jay. Thanks for
Great show today. I want to before we go, I really quickly want to throw a shout out to my daughter.
Yes.
Graduated from the U of A today, biomedical engineering, bachelor's degree, and about to become a Duke. She's going to go to Duke for graduate school.
Congratulations, Duke. Oh, yikes.
Yeah.
Good luck. Hey, thanks. Good day today here. Let's get out of here at 10:30 The Voice.
See you Monday.